SoCal Connected is made possible through the generous support of the Amundsen Foundation, serving the Los Angeles community since 1952.
On tonight's SoCal Connected, the records you weren't allowed to see.
This is information that had been kept secret for decades.
In an unprecedented move, 40 news groups partnered to dig into California's once secret police files.
We found evidence of police having sex on duty, falsifying records, fondling dispatchers.
A year-long investigation brings sunshine to decades of corruption, abuse, and secrecy.
There's no question that right now, many people are walking around having no idea that in their case, there is no evidence.
A warning, this story contains disturbing language and imagery that may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh, this one's good. Download anyway.
Reporter Julie Small has been investigating California's prisons for over a decade.
It's gonna take a minute. It took a year to get this tape.
On the record, today's date is August the 24th.
This is the guy that, he wasn't even on duty. He came into the prison in Southern California on his off day and then went into a cell and put his hands in one inmate's underpants, and then he did it to the second inmate. What he didn't know is that they were filming him.
This 2017 video was recorded by internal affairs investigators at the Women's State Prison in San Bernardino. This is the first time it's been seen publicly.
Advocates have been saying this for years, that this is going on in prisons. But now we have confirmation from the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation directly from their investigators. So this is official.
Can you show me, like, did he rub it? Did he cup it?
The videos and internal records offer a rare glimpse into how the California women's prison system investigates abuse at the hands of officers.
Both of his hands going like this to my butt.
Small obtained them in 2019 after requesting records about officer misconduct.
Here we have the people that have been fired, and we can actually see why, and it tells you a lot about what's going on inside.
The details are disturbing. According to the records, Officer Tony Garcia had an inmate perform oral sex on him while he was in her cell. He was fired and charged with a felony sex crime. He took a plea deal and did 2 days in jail. Officer Robert Darrow allegedly pulled an inmate into a broom closet and sexually assaulted her. According to the prosecutor, he had a history of being investigated for sexual activity with inmates.
There were criminal charges brought against him by the district attorney in San Bernardino, and those were just recently dropped. And they won't return my calls. They won't take any questions about the case. You know, what the advocates say is, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Those are just the ones that were confirmed. Those are just the ones where the prison officials said there's enough evidence here to investigate. There's many more things going on every day, according to them.
These videos and records would still be confidential if it weren't for a new state law. Before it, there was a 40-year lock on police files.
I'm Alex Emsley. I've been a criminal justice reporter for about a decade now, mostly in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Like San Jose has told us it's going to take 4 years, 5 years to get us all the records.
California had been for 40 years. One of the most secretive states in the whole country when it comes to public access to internal investigations of police officers when they commit misconduct.
It's 1/4/2015.
So I, and I think many others, became very used to that just being like, you just get used to things. And it's like, we just don't get to know that. And sometimes you get a little bit of a piece of it, something gets leaked out or something gets filed in some kind of a court proceeding, and you get a little glimpse into this internal world of how police themselves. But generally, you don't get to know.
So when and why were police conduct and misconduct swept from view in California?
My name is Stephen Downing. I'm a retired deputy chief from the Los Angeles Police Department. I was a commander of Southwest Division, which is in South Central Los Angeles, in a predominantly African-American community. It was following the Watts riot. We were not liked.
The 1965 Watts riots was the greatest example of urban unrest America had seen. Triggered by the arrest of 2 young black motorists by a white CHP officer, the city raged for 6 days. When it was over, the LAPD had a lot of work to do in regaining the community's trust. Ed Davis took over as LAPD chief in 1969 and created community policing. A first not only for LA, but the nation. It was a step towards greater transparency with the community.
Part of that was that if there was a disciplinary issue or complaints, I was in a position to share with them what the decision was, what we did about it, and I was in a position to talk about it.
In 1974, a state court decision gave criminal defendants access to police misconduct files. But there was pushback. The LAPD shredded 3 decades worth of non-sustained personnel complaints. Then, police unions went to work, lobbying first-term Governor Jerry Brown to make police personnel files confidential.
I went to Sacramento to argue against what this kind of legislation would do between the police and the community. Well, unfortunately, by this time, the police unions, they came to really own Sacramento.
And they got what they wanted. In 1978, Brown signed the bill into law. The blue curtain came crashing down on the public's right to know.
Chiefs of police in many departments, politicians, the councilmen and mayors in various cities, they opposed it.
2 months after it went into effect, an angry Mayor Tom Bradley warned the law's secrecy would put a cloud over the LAPD and its officers.
The police department now finds itself, having been told by the city attorney, you can't even release the information one way or the other after the investigations are completed, is a terrible development for us.
A wall of secrecy was built up and down the state around police conduct. It set the tone for the relationship between the cops and communities of color for the next 40 years. Meanwhile, police unions amassed political power and wielded it, beating back attempts at unsealing discipline records. Soon, confrontations with cops became viral videos. Uses of force were nothing new, but the public now saw them millions of times. But in 2018, after a high-profile police shooting of an unarmed man in Sacramento, state leaders were under pressure to do something.
This is Richard Tyson, who was killed by the Inglewood PD. He was unarmed.
I am the mother of Eric Rivera, who was shot and ran over by LAPD in June of last year.
My cousin, Junior Rodriguez, 14 years old, who was shot and killed by law enforcement in 2012.
The Democratic supermajority acted.
Thank you so much, members. I am presenting SB 1421.
SB 1421 would make public only 3 kinds of police records: confirmed cases of sexual assault, dishonesty, and incidents of serious or deadly use of force.
I'm like, oh, they're trying that again. That's kind of cool. Had no expectation that it was going to pass at all.
In his final months in office, Governor Brown signed SB 1421, undoing the very law he signed decades earlier.
When the governor signed it is when I had my uh-oh moment.
Thousands of records were unsealed, and the race was on to get them.
It was really kind of exhilarating to look behind the curtain to see the misconduct that some of these officers had committed.
But a purge was underway. Police departments in Inglewood, Santa Ana, Fremont, and Long Beach shredded decades of records, some claiming it had nothing to do with the new law. Others were charging 4, 5, even 6 figures to get copies of files and videos. Some families created GoFundMe pages to buy public records. In an unprecedented move, 40 news groups, including SoCal Connected, agreed to collaborate instead of compete.
We can't not be a part of this.
There were going to be no scoops, no one was going to beat each other, and we were going to actually work with the LA Times. I mean, it was cats sleeping with dogs and, just so different.
The collaboration as a whole has requested records from just about 700 law enforcement agencies throughout the state of California.
Here are the unique requests thing that you made me.
From that, we're getting new ones every day. I estimate that we received files from about 3,000 cases.
We found evidence of police having sex on duty in their patrol cars, tipping sex workers off that there's going to be a raid in exchange for sex.
A South Pasadena police officer was involved in hit and run. His mother tried to take the blame for it. He later fessed up, but was never charged with a crime.
We found police officers falsifying records, saying that people had given up their Miranda rights when they had not.
Hundreds of other incidents once hidden from view, now visible, and some labeled justified by police departments, according to our review.
Let's go! Get the out!
You got to kind of try to decipher what happened and what does the investigation actually show. Because at some point, I feel like our job is to tell the stories, but our job is never to pass judgment. This is right, this is wrong. It's more to explore the issue, say what happens, and then go farther.
I guess I'm interested in figuring out a way to get behind the incidents that are actually investigated. I've heard that, if somebody's inappropriate or has done something wrong, if an officer has done something wrong, the prison system will just transfer him somewhere else, or her. There are a lot of female officers, actually, who've been fired for having sexual relations with male inmates, so it's not just a man thing. It's a power thing. And it's, I don't know, that environment. We are here, let's see, 200 feet.
Small is talking to Amika Moda, who did time in 2 of California's prisons. Moda knows one of the officers mentioned in the videos, Israel Trevino. An inmate alleged he asked to see her breast in exchange for food.
Trevino, I remember him from the yard. I knew that he was kind of one of the no-good ones. When I read the reports, specifically about Trevino assaulting a woman in the supportive care unit, they're referred to as EOP, it's like enhanced outpatient care. It's someone that's got severe mental disabilities and in shackles. That was like even more of a blow for us. Even if we've experienced it, it was like they don't stop. We've seen it all, that's how we feel. And then we're like, yeah, but there's this portion that we haven't seen. And so it was really devastating.
It took months to fire Trevino. Despite investigators finding he repeatedly groped women in his custody, he was not charged with the crime. Attempts to reach Trevino and the other officers for comment were unsuccessful.
Without the law, without SB 1421, they would not have to give us these videos. I just would not have been able to see the interview with the officer. I never would have seen this.
But it does validate the experience. It gives some weight to claims that we feel like were likely to go ignored or, just kind of that we just wouldn't really be heard.
Some police agencies apparently believe following the new law is optional.
I've been at the register since 1990. For the last 5 years, Things have been so hectic in Orange County that I've had my hands full just covering scandal after scandal after scandal involving the Orange County Sheriff's Department and the Orange County District Attorney's Office.
The latest one? The widespread mishandling of evidence by the Orange County Sheriff's Department. It potentially affects thousands of people. But authorities kept the scandal out of the public eye. An audit was leaked to Saavedra. That's how we got the story.
Nearly 1/3 of all the property that was being seized by deputies was getting booked later than it was supposed to be. And some of this evidence wasn't getting booked at all. People were pleading guilty based on evidence that wasn't there.
If you have an Orange County Sheriff's Department case, every single person who pled guilty probably should say to themselves, shouldn't I go back and see if that evidence was booked? There's no question that right now, many, many people are walking around having no idea that in their case, there is no evidence.
The audit found 57 cases in which deputies didn't just book evidence late, they didn't book evidence at all, and then lied about it. 4 deputies were fired and several more were disciplined, but the Sheriff's Department won't say who they are.
I put in a request under 1421 saying that this qualifies as dishonesty. They said, no, it's not. We're not going to give you the documents.
Folks had to fight like crazy to get SB 1421. And what we're finding now, unfortunately, is it's got less teeth than we hoped.
The scandal may widen. The audit was a tiny sample of over 70,000 cases. The Orange County District Attorney's Office is reviewing cases to see if anyone has been affected by the scandal. Sheriff Don Barnes was not available for comment, but he has said that his department is taking all the right steps when it comes to evidence audits. Meanwhile, an Orange County cop is feeling betrayed by the badge. His search for the truth is hitting a wall of silence.
This is a part of the business I was not aware of, though. This was just, shocking to me that my own business can turn on me. It's a full betrayal.
Rock Wagner has spent a lifetime in law enforcement, first as a Los Angeles County Sheriff's Sergeant, and now as a Laguna Beach police officer.
I've always been pro-police, always, 100%. But I've always known and I've always watched, cops that go bad.
On November 28, 2017, Wagner was off duty.
I was on my last day of vacation. It was sort of a staycation. I hadn't left town. And I was at Walmart doing my routine shopping, and it was dusk and the sun was setting and the parking lot was kind of empty. And I saw something that I had been involved in. And I knew this was a big deal. 6 to 8 cars in a V pattern coming at me with headlights out. It looked impressive. I was like, that's a great formation. They're going after some badass felon, and I'm rolling out there like, I'm in the middle of this. And all I'm thinking is, I want to be a part of this, but I should get out of the way. They all popping out, calling my name, and I'm like, unbelievable. You want me? Rock Wagner, yeah. Grab the cart, grab my hands behind the back. Within seconds, and here we go.
Around the same time in Huntington Beach, Rock's sister Wendy and her boyfriend James got a knock on the door.
I have a metal door, and it was pounded so hard, and I thought, who the hell is doing that and what's going on?
I thought something was definitely wrong. I didn't know if there was a crazy person trying to break in our home, but I knew something was definitely wrong.
And I look out, and I see 10 men and women dressed in, like, full gear. And I went, oh, God, these guys are serious.
And I asked him, what is going on? He says, this is a search warrant. We're going to search your property. I said, for what? And he wouldn't answer. They started packaging everything up, and then they said, we're going to ask you to turn around. We're going to cuff you. I was like besides myself.
And as I'm being walked out in handcuffs, neighbors see me. And we've got about 5 or 6 cars with police lights all around our place. Humiliating, disgusting, gross, ugly, embarrassing, to say the least.
I don't have the words to describe what I was feeling. And all I could see was my Wendy, and I felt so helpless. We walked outside, and those They cuffed my girl right in front of me. They got us into the car, and we were in front of, I don't know how many neighbors, but I know a couple of neighbors were around us. And it was humiliated.
The trio was booked into the Fullerton City Jail, still unsure what was going on.
It was just this major disbelief.
We had no information. We weren't privy to information. They weren't telling us anything.
They soon learned why they were in jail, and so did everyone else.
A Laguna Beach police officer arrested on suspicion of bilking elderly victims out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Officer Rock Wagner is among 3 people arrested by Fullerton police for elder abuse and fraud. Wagner, along with his sister Wendy Wagner and her live-in boyfriend Norman McBride, have all posted bail.
I mean, I almost fell off the chair.
I go, are you blanking kidding me?
How can this be happening?
I said, did anyone investigate this?
They were accused of stealing from their parents, something they'd eventually learn was made up by an estranged family member. Both the Orange County District Attorney's Office and the Laguna Beach Police found no evidence of a crime.
The press that showed innocent people arrested was everywhere. The exoneration was nowhere. It's been a real hit to my career. For no reason at all.
I can't even get a job. My career is ruined. I've interviewed 20 jobs, and one of them I interviewed, and I didn't even get to sit down. He says, by the way, are you that James McBride that got arrested for stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars and elder abuse? I wasn't even in his office 5 minutes, and that's how the interview went.
They are now suing Fullerton, claiming there wasn't probable cause for their arrest. They also accused the lieutenant in charge, Catherine Hamill, of doing it to further her career, something that seems to be backed up by the local prosecutor. He was deposed last year.
She told me that she wanted to get this case cleared, because obviously if an arrest was made and charges were filed, it was going to be high profile because of the nature of the suspect. And she wanted to have that thing. She hoped that that might help in her promotion.
And there's yet another twist, a secret deal between Hamill and the Fullerton police. The unsigned draft settlement agreement surfaced last year on a local blog. It says the department agreed to drop its intent to discipline Hamill and remove allegations relating to dishonesty if she quit. It also says Hamill was the subject of a previous internal affairs investigation. By doing this, the police department doesn't have to make her discipline records public. It's an end run around the new law, says Wagner's attorney.
Apparently there won't be any investigation. It's like, okay, we're going to turn out the lights on this investigation, pull the plug, and it's done.
We don't know if the draft is different from the final agreement. Fullerton PD won't comment, citing confidentiality rules. Hamill and her attorney did not respond to requests for comment. But some cities use secret settlement agreements to quietly part ways with problem officers.
I think it is sort of an end run and a loophole when the agency and its internal investigation does find that an officer has committed misconduct. They then enter into a settlement with the law enforcement officer and says, okay, we're going to settle, and part of that settlement agreement is we haven't reached a sustained finding, and you won't work here anymore. The public will never get to know what that person is being investigated for.
Wagner still doesn't know why he was arrested, or if anyone was held accountable.
They've all remained silent. It's absolutely despicable. I was going to retire. I've had my time here, you know. I could get out any time. But now I've chosen to stay. I want to choose to stay and fight as an on-duty police officer against this department.
Other Californians are also in the fight to know.
Los Angeles is one of the most secretive locales in hiding the records of problematic police. The LA County Sheriff has completely refused to comply with the new law.
The people protesting here say they've either experienced police brutality or know someone who has. They want answers. They're finding out it's a long wait to get them. 10 years ago, Helen Jones's son died inside the LA County Men's Central Jail.
Nobody has been held accountable for his death. They just sweeping it up under the rug. When the law passed for us to get our records, of course, the sheriff department don't want to turn none of that stuff over.
The ACLU is a key sponsor of SB 1421. It's now suing, singling out the department as the worst in the state when it comes to complying with the new law.
Please welcome to the stage incumbent DA Jackie Lacey.
Los Angeles District Attorney Jackie Lacey is running for re-election this year. It's being called the most important DA race in the nation. Her record on holding police accountable is now a factor in the race.
The LA County District Attorney's Office is independent. We have filed on more than 200 officers for violating the law. So we are not afraid to take on cases that involve officers.
People now seem to be getting it that people who are elected really do make a difference in people's lives.
Despite the groundbreaking passage of SB 1421, California still remains one of the most restrictive states in the nation when it comes to access. The fight to know continues.
It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty to win.
SoCal Connected is made possible through the generous support of the Amundsen Foundation, serving the Los Angeles community since 1952.